Welcome to a preview of the PIAA State Football Championships. I'm Mike Zambelli. I'll be your host for the next 30 minutes as we take a look at the 2A and 4A championship games. Joining me this afternoon is Sports Fever editor Gordon Blaine. Gordon, welcome aboard. And well, it's hard to believe, but we're already into the championships. Hershey Park Stadium will be alive with the 2A and 4A title games, and it should be some exciting football.
Well, it's the true Super Bowl of high school football in the state of Pennsylvania. These 8 teams have worked very hard to get here, and everybody surrounding them in the communities and the schools, the great support these teams get, have all now kind of put it all on the line for these championships, and there's really no losers. There's really just a team that happens to win the championship trophy. To get here is a real victory. That's
a very good point. The first game this afternoon will be the 2A championship game in Mount Carmel. No stranger to these championships. Will be taking on Shady side, and that really should be a heck of a matchup as Mount Carmel has been there. They have won championships in '94, '96. Shady side is making their first trip to the finals. Let's take a look at that magical road now to Hershey as both these two teams battled through their respective brackets to make it to the title. And Gordon, we look at Mount Carmel coming through the Eastern bracket. They were really unchallenged.
That's because of their own making. They've played some pretty good football teams, beating Wyoming area was a quality team, and of course the Red Tornado has just a great history. They're the winningest all-time program in high school football in the state of Pennsylvania, one of the winningest nationally. A great tradition there. It's been there for generations. There's an expectation in the Silver Bowl, and that is you win football games.
Well, and of course, Shady side, one of just 3 unbeaten teams to make it to the Final 8. 14-0 Art Walker, another legendary coach, will face off against Whitey Williams. That should be an interesting matchup right there.
Whitey took over for a legend in Jazz Diminick, and we're facing a legend in Art Walker, who got his 200th win this year. Some say this might be his last year. He had some great teams in the Western Pennsylvania over the years, and he's now at Shady side. Shady side has only lost once in the last 2 years. A tremendous run for the Indians. They've got a stable full of running backs and a great quarterback in Adam Frederick. What this could be the most explosive matchup of the whole weekend.
11th season that the PIAA has been crowning state champions in the Class 1, 2, 3, and 4A. Let's take a look at past winners now in the AA bracket. And, of course, Mount Carmel has been there twice. And the interesting thing with them, Gordon, is there have been times they're so close to that District 4, District 11 border that when either changes the border, they want a title as a District 4 rep and a District 11 champion.
This bracket really has been dominated by the Eastern schools, and should I say the Eastern Conference, because just a great football coming out of that Districts 2, 4, and 11 when it comes to the 2A schools, Mount Carmel being at the top of it. South Park had a great run last year, but Shady side, that was the only loss they suffered last year, was the South Park. So there's a real, Mount Carmel wants to get back on top. Shady side wants to try to get there finally for the first time.
Red Tornadoes beat the Marion Catholic Colts 30-0 in the Eastern Finals. We have some footage to show of that game, and it was really all Mount Carmel as they did a really good job offensively in controlling that line of scrimmage, used their special players that they have, and we pick up the action here in the first quarter. Quarterback Nick Sebas, and he is going to find number 27, Matt Van Doren, and that gets them down into the 9-yard line. And Sebas, really a fantastic football game, will finish this one off with the first of his 4 touchdowns.
Nick Sebas was part of a backfield that was the sprint champion relay team in District 4 last year, and you're going to see some tremendous speed from these guys. Sebas has great speed, great athleticism, and his running mates back there, Al Bailey and Jonathan Veach. You're not going to find a stronger threesome in any backfield in the state.
Josh Paracella is their leading receiver. He was injured on that punt return. He did not return. His availability for the championship questionable, and that could have a bearing on the outcome of the game. Al Bailey with a nice 20-yard run, a nice trap block there inside by Dan Dawkins, and that set up a field goal, a 34-yarder by Matt Butcher, and Mount Carmel was on their way, leading at this point 10-0.
They have a defense that just gets after folks, and here you see it, and they really hit folks hard. The key to the Mount Carmel team is great speed and quickness, and that always makes a great defense. They've only allowed 41 yards a game. We talked a lot about Moon's great defense. Mount Carmel's right there with them.
Yeah, and here's Sebas again, and what makes this young man so tough is when you play good defensive and in passing lanes, he has that ability to scramble out. 17-0 at that point, 9:31 to go in the second. Colts try to get something going. Stan DeCoste sophomore quarterback. He will find number 12, Neil Nowitzki, downfield, 32-yarder. But they were unable to move it any further than that, and the half ended with Mount Carmel in control at 17-0. On to the third quarter, more Zebus, more Red Tornadoes.
You know, Mount Carmel's played Marion 3 times in the over the last 2 years and hasn't allowed Marion, one of the great offenses, really, of Coal-Region football, not to score touchdown. So not only does Mount Carmel do it with the great speed there you see from Nick Zebus, but they do it with a tremendous defense. This might be one of the best all-time Mount Carmel teams in that great tradition and history they have. There's some debate about it, but quite frankly, I don't know where they've ever had this kind of speed and size to go together.
Nick Chesty there with the interception. He returned it to the 15, and then Zebus again, the keeper around left end. And it was all Mount Carmel as they win this one 30-0. There were seconds remaining in the third, but the celebration was already on as they validated their ticket into this afternoon's championship game. And again, winners in 94 and 96, and they play a good brand of football up there. We'll take a look at their schedule, and as they enter the game at 13-1. And the one loss, Gordon, is to a team that is playing for the 3A championship, Allentown Central Catholic, in what was one of the premier games of the state during the regular season.
There's no doubt about that, and I think anyone that would have thought differently probably was, had other ideas about what good football is. But quite frankly, this Allentown Central Catholic game that they had, I believe Mount Carmel learned as much from it as we talked about the Vikings learning from that game. It went down to the wire, 2 great traditions battling it out. It's a Silver Bowl in Mount Carmel. And Mount Carmel really, if you look at the scores, they really haven't been challenged except for one game. And here's where Shady Side's going to try to hang its hat. Shikellamy lit the Red Tornadoes up for over 400 yards passing one night. It was one of those games that the high school kids got going and things got going back and forth. But quite frankly, that was the only game where Mount Carmel's defense really took any kind of a hit whatsoever. Against the run, there's nobody better than the Red Tornadoes.
Well, they're back in that championship game under Whitey Williams. We take a look at Shady's side, one of 3 unbeaten teams in the Final 8 in this year's championships, and we do want to apologize. We made every effort to try and obtain footage of their championship game out west, but we'll talk a little bit about Shady's side, their District 7, the WPIAL. Art Walker, a legendary coach, but this is their first trip to the state finals. I'm sure he has to be excited about it.
Well, near miss last year. They only lost last year in the WPIAL playoffs to South Park, the eventual state champion. Adam Frederick, their quarterback, a 4-year starter, has a full ride offer to Kent State, probably going to get a couple more before it's all said and done. The heart and soul of their team, both offensively and defensively. But the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette picked 3 of their players to be fabulous 22 players. In other words, the top 22 players in the Pittsburgh area. 3 of their players, Jarius Acey, their wideout, Mario Medley, their wideout, and their running back, Ian Alexander. You're just talking about a lot of good athletes. Shady Side's been aiming toward just for a couple of years. They went from 3-7 4 years ago now to an undefeated team in the state finals in Hershey. It's going to be, when you look at it on paper, the Mount Carmel speed, the ability to put points on the board. Shady Side is the 2nd-ranked team in the state for winning margin, winning games by almost an average of 32 points a game. You're looking at a game that could just be all kinds of fireworks, a lot of points. The fact that Shady Side likes to run the football, but they have a good quarterback who can pass. And the one little Achilles heel that Mount Carmel's had has been against the pass at times. So it's a matchup that could have a lot of points on the board.
For the first time since they started the playoffs back in 1988, they will be playing on a grass surface. They'll be at Hershey Park Stadium, and I know a lot of the Western schools in particular will play a lot of their playoffs on AstroTurf. Think it'll have any effect on the game?
Well, I'm a bit nervous about the fact that, come as you go through the games, and there's more games played on that grass, that would be the field's going to be torn up, and the footing might not be what they've become accustomed to on the artificial surface. But Hershey's really spent a lot of money on this field. I mean, millions of dollars, and a great effort to get the field. It's a fiber reinforced turf. We've seen games on it after there's been a lot of football played on it. There's been some weather on it. We've seen games played on it, and it's really held up well. So I don't anticipate any problems with the field at all. Expecting some nice weather for this time of the year in Pennsylvania. I think it's going to be great surface, and I hope it's a fast surface because we're going to see a lot of great athletes with good speed and quickness can do some of the good things they've done all year.
It is truly a great showcase for some of the best high school football stars in the area. The Pennsylvania State playoffs and the championship games are truly something that you want to certainly take in. Well, let's take a look at Shadyside's schedule as they participate in the District 7 WPIAL, and they enter the championship game 14-0. They started out the year beating Laurel Highlands 49-7. At South Park, 35-28.
Mike, that was a big win for them. They revenged that loss in the playoffs from a year ago. That was with Brian Guzik, a Pitt recruit for South Park. Many thought that team might have a chance to repeat. As it turned out, they didn't. They lost in their first round of the playoffs. But that was a big win for Shadyside. They got that monkey off the bat, and as you can see from the scores, they started to roll pretty good. Yeah,
49-0 over Ford City. At Deer Lake, 53-14, and I think the thing to look at is some of the numbers that they put up offensively. Mars 46-7, beat Freeport 40-12, Northgate 41-0, and then Apollo Ridge 40-0. And that's a 4-game stretch, a 5-game stretch where you score more than 40 points.
This team has, as we said, one of the top winning margins in the state. The only test they received was this past week, and as I talked to some of the folks at Shadyside, they thought it was a good medicine for them. You know, you always want to have a tough game, and you don't want to learn the lesson the hard way, and that's lose. They battled hard. They won the game in the final minute over Sharon. As Sharon, a very good football team, a great proud tradition of Sharon, a team that's been in the state playoffs many times. So they won that game in very tough fashion up at Erie on the road in the Western Final. So they really kind of got battle tested. They found out something about themselves. They can win a good tight game because they haven't really been challenged all that much this year.
You've been around these state playoffs for a long, long time, and I think you see a lot of teams that come in with dominating records like that. Do you think, I mean, Mount Carmel playing Central Catholic and losing that game, Shadyside unbeaten, that pressure builds with every win. Think Mount Carmel maybe with an edge having that one loss and played a team like Central Catholic?
I think so, and I think probably even more so the tradition of Mount Carmel football. When you go through the town of Mount Carmel, they start out each home game with a parade from one end of the town to the other. It's a tradition, and no football game would ever start without the parade, the band leading the folks to the stadium to get to their seats. The Silver Bowl, Mike, very rarely it has an empty seat. So that tradition really carries well. 2 players are from the last state championship team on that team, and that's Mike Sinkovich and, of course, John Ellis. So we've got 2 players that have kind of tied over from that championship game 2 years ago. And Mighty Williams, what a great tradition. He's kind of, no coach has won more games quicker than Mighty Williams in that great tradition of Mount Carmel football. So not only did that tough schedule and that big win over Central Catholic, I think, help Mount Carmel a lot, but really just the fact that it's Mount Carmel, a great tradition. Shadyside now trying to break into that tradition and hoping to add to it. Shadyside really has some nice athletes. I think folks are going to be impressed with their athleticism and the ability for this team, Shadyside, to do different things. I don't know if a Mount Carmel team, though, on the other hand, has ever had this kind of speed.
Experience-wise, obviously, you're coming in. If you're Mount Carmel, you've been there before. You mentioned Coach Williams, and it has to play a big part. You would have to think that Shadyside might want to, get settled in and get off to a key to the success could be getting off to a good start.
Well, there's no doubt about that. They want to build their confidence, but I'm not so sure that I would count Shadyside out. They fall behind. Some of the other matchups this weekend, if a team gets behind, they may have trouble catching up, say a Southern Columbia with their wing tee. But with these 2 teams, there's too many athletes that can do too many things. I've been saying it for weeks. I really believe this might be the marquee game in terms of back and forth, a shoot-'em-out affair, coming down the final seconds. Mount Carmel, Shadyside, with so many good athletes that can do so many different things, makes for a real exciting mix.
Certainly should. The 2A championship game at Hershey Park Stadium. 13-1 Mount Carmel. They'll take on unbeaten Shadyside at 14-0. We'll be back to take a look at that 4A championship game. CB West in Newcastle. Stay right where you are.
You are watching PCN, the Pennsylvania Cable Network, a public service of Pennsylvania Cable Television Companies. PCN is supported by TCI of Pennsylvania, serving cable subscribers in suburban Pittsburgh, including East Hills and Ross Township.
Live from Chocolatetown, USA, the Pennsylvania Cable Network in association with the PIAA presents high